Welcome to this platform. We continue with IGCSE Biology 0610. So in this one, we look at chapter 7, which is human nutrition. So this is for the new syllabus for the exams in the year 2026, 2027, and 2028. Now, this is the full coverage of the topic, and normally the focus is extended. So we are going to cover the topic in full, and I urge you to stay up to the end. Now, before we start even, let me just say, this being chapter 7, it means that we've done chapter 1 up to 6, and the recordings or the lessons are available on this platform. You should be able to go through if you are revising for the exams, and also includes exam questions from paper 2 answered from 2021 to 2025. All right, let us continue with this part that we are looking at, which is human nutrition. So what do we need to know about human nutrition? So human nutrition is just the way humans obtain food. And of course, we obtain already made food. Okay, we don't make our own food. We eat already made food. Okay, so the main focus under this one, or the first thing that we look at, is actually looking at balanced diet. Now, the question is, what is a balanced diet? So a balanced diet is the one that contains all the food groups in the correct proportion. So the balanced diet contains all the food groups in the correct proportion. As you can see, the picture here illustrates what compose of the balanced diet. I'm sure from here you're able to spot proteins, carbohydrates, you're able to spot the source of vitamins, you're able to spot the sources of carbohydrate and all that. So when you talk of balanced diet, it means it need to have carbohydrates, okay? You need to have proteins, need to have lipids, and also vitamins, minerals, and all those. So they need to be part of this balanced diet. So very important, okay? All right, having looked at this part, let us look at now the food groups. And the first one that we are going to look at is carbohydrates. And under this, we are going to focus mainly on the functions. So what are the functions of carbohydrates? So carbohydrates mainly are source of energy, okay, source of energy, and this energy comes from respiration. So when they are broken down during respiration, that is glucose, energy is produced. So these are source of energy. Examples of carbohydrates are these examples or sources of carbohydrates are these that you are able to see right here. So we have rice, pastas, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, oats, and all these that you are able to see here. These are sources of carbohydrates. Let us look at fats and oil. So fats and oil, when you talk of fats and oil, in terms of the functions, so these act as long-term stores of energy and also function as insulators. So for insulation and also stores energy, okay? Then we look at proteins. So for proteins are important for growth and repair of body tissues. So growth and repair of body tissues needs proteins, okay? So fats, please, we've not looked at examples, but these are examples that you're able, or sources that you're able to see right here, all right? Such as butter, oil, nuts, and all these that you're able to see here are sources of what? Are sources of fats and oil. Back to proteins. So for protein, we are saying for growth and repair of body tissues. And in this case, if you look at this, we have fish that you're able to see here. You have meat that you're able to see there. And of course, some eggs. All these that you're able to see are some of the sources of proteins. Okay, remember, proteins are normally used just for growth and repair of body tissues. Let us look at vitamins. So for vitamins, in this case, we start with vitamin C. And of course, for this one, the function is simply healthy skin and gums. Now, lack of this or deficiency of this result into what you call scurvy. And now scurvy, the signs of scurvy, we simply look at bleeding of gums. So bleeding of gums is the one that one of the signs of scurvy. And then also we can talk of poor healing of wounds. Okay, poor healing of wounds. So vitamin C or lack of this result into what we call scurvy. So very important that you understand this deficiency. Examples or sources of vitamin C, we have guavas, we have kiwi, we have All these fruits that you are able to see here, these are sources of what? Vitamin C. Then of course D. So for this one, helps the body absorb calcium, okay, which is needed for what? Strong bones. So in other words, this one is needed for strong bones and the teeth. Now, what is the deficiency? So the deficiency of this result into the condition known as what? Rickets, which is just the deformation of bones, okay? So result into a condition called rickets because of bones are not that strong or weak bones, okay? So we are saying rickets causes weak and soft bones as well as deformities. Sources include eggs, okay? Products such as egg, fish, oil, or fish oil. Eggs are the sources of this vitamin D, but also sunlight stimulates the synthesis of this vitamin. Let us look at mineral ions. So for mineral ions here, the first one that we are going to look at is calcium. So what is the function of calcium? So calcium is needed for strong bones as well. So aside from vitamin D, also this one is needed for strong bones and teeth. And of course, it helps also in the process, or it helps in blood clotting. So one of the ion that is needed for blood clotting is calcium ion. So calcium is needed for strong bones and teeth, and also helps in blood clotting. Sources, we can talk of milk and also some eggs. What about iron as mineral ion? Iron is needed to make hemoglobin. So this one is just needed to make what? To make hemoglobin, which is just part of red blood cell. So which is present in the red blood cell and helps to carry oxygen around the body. So in other words, iron is used in the synthesis or making of hemoglobin. Examples, we can talk of red meat and also spinach. So these are examples, these are sources of mineral ion. Then we have fiber or roughage. So what do you have to say about roughage? So for roughage or fiber, helps to move through the stomach, help food to move through the stomach. In other words, it stimulates the intestinal wall for peristalsis. So it's the one that promotes peristalsis, the continuous contraction of the alimentary canal to enable the movement of food from the mouth to all part of or section of the alimentary canal. So fibers helps food to move through the stomach and intestine. Sources, we can talk of vegetables, fruits, and whole grain. These are the sources of what? Roughage. The other one that we can look at is water. So water is needed because most of the chemical reactions occur in water. So in other words, is needed as the solvent in chemical reactions. So water is needed for chemical reactions to take place in living cells. All right, let us look at digestive system now. So the first thing we look at the parts of a digestive system. So for the part, we have the parts of the digestive system and also the part that helps, which are called accessory organs. So what are the parts? So one of the part is the mouth. Then when you can talk of the large intestine, we can talk of the smaller intestine. Then we can talk of the stomach. So these are the parts of, including the esophagus, please. So these are the parts of the digestive system. But we have other organs such as the liver, we have the gallbladder, we have the pancreas. These are just accessory organs, but helps in digestion. So very important that you understand also these. So very important that also you're able to identify and also point at the parts. So these are the parts of the digestive system. All right, let us look at parts of the small intestine and large intestine. Okay, parts of the small and the large intestine. So the large intestine is made, the small intestine, let us start with. So small intestine is made up of 3 sections. So we have the first portion of the small intestine, which is known as the duodenum, which is just immediately after the stomach, then followed by the ileum, then of course followed by the jejunum. But in this case, we just focus on the duodenum and also the ileum. Then for the large intestine is made up of the parts. We have the colon, which is this part here, okay, the colon, which is the longest portion of the large intestine. Then we have the rectum, which is this part, and also we have the anus. So these make up the large intestine. So the small intestine again, duodenum, ileum. Then of course the large intestine, colon, anus, and also the rectum. So these make up the large intestine. All right, let us look at the function of organs of digestive organs in relation to one, ingestion, and also in other words, in relation to the stages that are involved in the digestion or breaking down of food along the alimentary canal. All right, functions of organs of organs of digestion in relation to one. The first part is ingestion. So what is ingestion really? So this is simply the taking in of food into the mouth. Okay, so it's taking in of substance into the body through the mouth. So the function of the mouth here is simply that is the entry part of the food. So ingestion is the taking of substance into the mouth through the mouth. Okay, then digestion, this is simply the breaking down of food, and there are two types of digestion that we are going to discuss under this one. So you have physical digestion and chemical digestion, but digestion is just the breaking down of food. Then absorption is the movement of nutrients. So very important that you understand this movement of nutrients from the intestines into the blood. Okay, so the movement of nutrients from the intestines into the blood. Then assimilation is just the uptake or the uptake and use of nutrients by cells. So uptake and use or utilization. Okay, so you find terms such as the utilization. It's just the same as use. Okay, nutrient move from the circulatory circulatory to the what? To the cells. Then now that is egestion, which is the removal of undigested food from the body as feces. So the undigested food are removed from the body as feces. Okay, that is called egestion. Okay, like I said, there are two types of digestion. That is physical and chemical digestion. So we are going to discuss these one by one. So let us start with physical digestion, and then we are going to discuss chemical digestion. What is physical digestion? So physical digestion is just a breaking down of food into smaller pieces. So insoluble food into, insoluble food, but smaller into the breaking down of large pieces of food into smaller pieces. That is what we call physical digestion, and does not involve enzymes. So no enzyme is involved. Okay, so through action of teeth in the mouth, the process called mastication, and also some other section we are going to look at that. Now, what is the purpose of physical digestion? So this is just increases the surface area of food for the action of enzyme in chemical digestion. So this prepares the food for the next type of digestion, which is the chemical digestion. Okay, so physical digestion is mainly carried out by the teeth in the mouth, the stomach, and also the duodenum. So these are the portions of the digestive system where physical digestion occurs, like I've already said. Okay, now let us look at the type of teeth in humans. Let us look at the type of teeth in humans. So for the types of teeth, there are 4 types of teeth in humans. We have the incisors, which is abbreviated as I. Then we have the canines, C. We have the premolar, M. And we have the molars. So the flange teeth that you are able to see here, these are called incisors. As you can see here, are called incisors. Then the pointed one there is called the canines. Then beyond the canines, you find the premolar. Then last end, you find the molars. So these are examples of or types of teeth that we have in humans. So types of teeth in humans are these that you are able to see: canines, incisors, premolar, and molars. What is important here is to know their functions. That is what you find in the exams. So function of the teeth, what is the function of the teeth? So one, for incisors, they are used for biting and cutting. So biting and cutting. So for incisors. So if you are given a list like this, you should be able to identify them through their shapes. So this is the incisors, the first one. So this one is just used for biting and cutting. Then for canines, they are used for tearing fresh and culling young ones. So you see in animals such as lions, they are very long, which means they are used for tearing fresh, okay? And also suffocate their prey. But anyway, so what you need to know is that they are used for tearing fresh and culling young ones. Then premolar, normally for crushing and grinding. Equally, the molars, crushing and grinding. And of course, its shape can tell the way it is there that this is normally for crushing and grinding. Now, what is the difference between the molar and premolar? Okay, so it's a number of roots. So this one you find maybe 2 roots, but this one you find about 4 roots in it. Okay, and in terms of size, the molar is a bit big. So this is what you need to know under this part. All right, let us look at the internal structure of a teeth. So if I were to get one teeth and of course look at inside, so the internal structure of a teeth looks like this. So this whole thing is the teeth anchored in the gums. Okay, so the whole this is the teeth. Okay, so what are the parts? So the first part here is called that is the enamel. So that is the enamel. Okay, the second part is known as the dentine. Then of course in the dentine, this is the pulp cavity. Okay, the space is called pulp cavity. Okay, then we have here the blood vessels. So you can talk of the blood vessels inside the pulp cavity and also the nerves. So you have the nerves and the blood vessels there. So these are the parts of the teeth. So the internal part of the teeth. And of course, these are gums. You can talk of gums. Then of course, near the skin here, this part, near the tooth here, you find the cement. Okay, so these are the parts that you need to know. All right, let us look at the function of the internal part of the teeth. So let us start with the enamel. So the enamel is the outer part there, the white part. That is the enamel. What is the function of the enamel? So the enamel is the strongest part of the teeth, made from calcium salt. Okay, is the strongest part of the teeth, made from what? Calcium salt. Then what about the dentine? So it's a bone-like tissue below the enamel, made of what? Calcium as well, and phosphate, and also some collagen fibers. So very important that you know the component of this. So this one, the outer part, this enamel simply prevent the teeth from eroding. When you take food that are acidic, or just prevent the internal part of the teeth from eroding. Okay. Then the dentine contain this calcium, phosphate, and collagen, and all that. Then the pulp cavity. The pulp cavity is just a space within the dentine, which is made up of blood vessels and also the nerve cells. The blood vessels supply the teeth with oxygen and also some nutrients. Okay, but the nerve cells are for sensitivity. Okay, so become sensitive to pressure and high temperature and all that. So the nerve cells, okay, it makes the tooth sensitive, which is something that I've already said, to heat or pressure. The blood vessels supply the tooth with food and the oxygen. I've said that. The cement is just a bone-like tissue which with fibers that anchors. So in other words, this one, the key thing is it anchors the tooth to the jawbone. So it's the one that attaches the teeth to the jawbone. So these are the functions of the internal part of the tooth. And please, if you are watching up to this point, I guess you understand everything, and do not forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel, share with others, okay? Otherwise, we can continue. All right, let us look at now the function of the stomach in physical digestion. Remember, we said physical digestion occurs in the mouth, in the stomach, and also in the duodenum. So what is the function of a stomach in physical digestion? So one thing that you need to know that the stomach is made up of the muscles, or the wall of the stomach contain muscles. And these muscles continuously contract and relax, mixing the food that is in the stomach. And the process is known as churning. So the contraction and relaxation of the stomach muscles mixes the food in a paste-like, otherwise known as chyme. and that is what we call churning. Okay, so churning is just the rhythmic contraction of the stomach muscles mixing the food, forming what we call chime. Okay, let us look at the role of bile in emulsification. So another physical digestion occurs in the duodenum, and that physical digestion is known as emulsification. So what is the role of bile in emulsification? So as you can see, this structure that we are given here, bile actually is produced by the liver and stored in the gallbladder. So as you can see, this is the liver, produces bile and stored in the gallbladder. Okay, we can see that is the small intestine, which is the first part, the duodenum, that we are going to discuss in relation to bile. So bile get to the duodenum through the bile duct. Okay, so bile is greenish. Bile is greenish. Now, greenish brown fluid which help in digestion. It is made by the liver, like I've already said, and stored in the gallbladder. So this I've already mentioned. Now, bile is secreted into the duodenum through the bile duct for two reasons. So we are looking at the function of bile now. It is alkaline, so it neutralizes the hydrochloric acid which comes from the stomach. So the food, you know that from the stomach, it enters the duodenum. So this food that is coming, the chyme, is actually acidic. So enzymes that work well in the small intestine, they work actually at alkaline pH. So there's need to convert the pH or to neutralize the pH of the chyme from acidic to alkaline. So it's the one that does the role. So it's alkaline, and so it neutralizes the acidic, hydrochloric acid, which comes from the stomach together with food. Also, it breaks down large drops of fat into smaller ones, and this is called emulsification. Okay, so emulsification is just a breakdown of large fat into smaller droplets, and that is just to create the surface area for the action of the enzyme lipase. The enzyme lipase is the one that is involved in breaking down of fats. So this is a typical example of emulsification. As you can see, bile here is involved. So this is large fats broken down into smaller droplets. This is physical digestion. It does not involve enzyme. Okay? Okay, so having looked at physical digestion and all that we've looked at, I guess you're prepared now to look at chemical digestion. So normally physical digestion just prepare the food for chemical digestion. We can now look at chemical digestion. So under chemical digestion, what do we need to know? So chemical digestion is just a breaking down of large insoluble molecules into small soluble. So large insoluble into small soluble molecules. Okay? And the role of chemical digestion is just to produce small molecules that can be absorbed. In other words, makes food, soluble food available for assimilation, okay, by the cell of the body. So the role of chemical digestion is simply to produce small molecules that can be absorbed. Okay. So in this case, if you look at this structure, we have the stomach, the pancreas produces digestive enzyme, the gallbladder. So in looking at chemical digestion, we are simply going to focus on these as the area where the enzymes are produced and also other things that are involved. So let us look at enzymes in digestion. So one of the enzymes that we look at is amylase. So amylase are produced in the mouth and also the pancreas. So two sections where amylase are produced. So in the mouth, we have amylase, and the pancreas. The one that is secreted in the pancreas goes into the small intestine. So you find this in the duodenum. So this is secreted by the pancreas. Okay, so because they are found in different regions, even their names differ. So you have salivary amylase and of course pancreatic amylase, but they do the same role. So what is the function of amylase? So function of amylase simply digests the starch into small sugars, which is maltose. So in other words, break down starch into disaccharide, otherwise known as maltose. Okay, so now after that has happened comes what we call maltase. So maltase break down maltose into glucose on the epithelial lining of the small intestine. So these are broken down into glucose. Okay, so this is the whole process. So we have the large starch here. So this starch through amylase is broken down to these disaccharides. You can see two pieces. Then from here, maltase break down into individual monomers, which are glucose. So that is what you need to know. What about protease? So protease break down protein into peptides and then into amino acids. So pepsin, examples of protease, we have pepsin that come from the stomach, which is acidic environment, and trypsin, which work well from, which come from the pancreas. So protease, these are just enzymes that break down peptides into amino acids. Two types of them. We have pepsin, which is work well at acidic pH, which is 2. Then trypsin, which works well in the alkaline pH, and this is released in or produced by the pancreas. Okay, so let us look at lipase. So lipase break down lipids into fat acid and glycerol. So the function of lipase is simply to break down lipids into fat acids and glycerol, and these are basic units of fats. Okay, so lipase is produced by the pancreas as well, and digestion of lipids, you need to know that it starts and ends in the duodenum. So this is the other section. There's no digestion of lipids. So the typical example that you can look at here in the case of so this is the example on proteins, where the protein is broken down to peptides, then from peptides to amino acids. But let us look at so for lipase is the one that we've looked at actually. Anyway, there's no part for lipase, but if I look at those small droplets now, are the ones that break down into fat acid and glycerol. And let me just maybe give examples of what happened here, because I've seen an exam question. So fat actually is made up of glycerol molecule, then also with 3 fat acids. Glycerol molecule with glycerol with 3 fat acids, like this. So with the action of lipase, this convert this glycerol, separating with 3 fat acids. So we are going to look at that question, and when we get to that question, I'll get to emphasize that, okay, this is what I was saying. Okay, so digestive enzymes, if we are to look at them carefully and where they are produced and the role they play in the digestive system. So enzymes, this is a summary of what we've looked at. So enzymes, where it is produced, where does it act, substrate digested, end products. So if you look at this, enzyme amylase is produced in the salivary gland in the mouth, and it breaks down starch. So starch is a substrate. Then end product is maltose, then from maltose to glucose. Amylase, again, one that is released in the pancreas, act in the duodenum, then of course also the substrate is starch, then break down maltose to the end product to glucose. Then protease, first one, pepsin, which act in the stomach, or where it is produced in the stomach, where it acts is the stomach. Then what it does, or the substrate, is protein, end product amino acids. Then again protease produced in the pancreas, duodenum, specifically proteins, amino acids. Then lipase produced in the pancreas, it acts in the duodenum, the substrate is fats, then end is fat acid and glycerol. So very important that you understand this. Let us look at the role of hydrochloric acid, or the function of hydrochloric acid. So the function of hydrochloric acid in the gastric juice, the gastric juice is the one that is produced in the stomach for the digestion of proteins. So the function of hydrochloric acid is simply, it maintains the pH it maintains the acidic pH for the proper action of pepsin. So we can say give optimum pH for pepsin activity. Then also denaturing enzymes in harmful microorganisms, okay, or destroying germs that might have been ingested together with the food. Then also providing the acidic pH for optimum action of the enzyme activity. I think this one is just the same with this one, if not so. All right, so these are the ones that we can look at in terms of the functions of hydrochloric acid. Let us look at now the functions of bile. So bile is an alkali mixture that neutralizes acidic mixture of the food and also the gastric juice entering the duodenum. So the food that is coming from the stomach is acidic, so need to be neutralized. And what plays a role is actually bile, okay? And also it provides a suitable pH for the action of enzyme. What is the pH there? Is alkali or alkaline pH. I think I've explained something on this part where we are coming from. All right, let us look at now absorption. So what is absorption really? So absorption is simply the movement of digested food molecules from the digestive system into the blood. So the movement of digested food molecules from the digestive system into the blood is what we call absorption. So the small intestine plays a role in absorption of food nutrients, or that is where nutrients or food nutrients are absorbed. Okay, so the section of the small intestine, we can talk of the duodenum, the jejunum, and also the ileum. And of course, the ileum is the longest, and that is why it is believed that most of the absorption do occur. So small intestine mainly for absorption of nutrients. Most water is absorbed from the small intestine. So I've seen the question where they bring the large intestine also, please, is for absorption of water. That is the colon part, absorption of water from undigested food. But mainly absorption occurs. So where there's much absorption taking place is actually in the small intestine. If we were to look at this, these questions, I've seen them. So in the small intestine, there's much absorption compared to the colon. So whatever remains is what is absorbed in the colon. Let us look at the villi. So the ileum of a small intestine or section of a small intestine actually is adapted for absorption because of the features that it has. So you can say the ileum is adapted for absorption as it has highly folded surface with millions of what we call villi and actually microvilli. What are villi? Which are just, what are villi? These are just tiny finger-like projection that are found in the lining of actually the ileum. And of course, these increases the surface area, or villi increases the surface area for actually, or area of ileum, allowing absorption to take place faster and more efficiently. In other words, the villi are found in the ileum, and of course, they are many or they are numerous in number just to simply increase the surface area for the absorption. On that, they also have microvilli, which further increases the surface area for the absorption. So all this is for the absorption of nutrients. Okay, now this is the structure of a villus. So a structure of a villus looks like this. This is just one, but of course these are a lot villi. So as you can see, finger-like projection, finger-like projection, finger-like projection. Now the outer part of these, we have the epithelial. The epithelial cells outside here, and that is where you find microvilli. So on the surface of these, that is where you find microvilli. So these are villi, but on the surface you find microvilli. Okay, so what you are able to see here, you should be able to see the villi, the capillaries that is inside the villi. We are going to look at maybe the zoomed diagram of this, just simply looking at focusing on one diagram. So inside it, you should be able to see capillaries and also the inside part, which is known as the lacteal, and also some other connection there. Okay, so microvilli on the surface, then you should be able to look at or to see the lacteal inside it. All right, so this villi actually, or if we are to get one, it is made up of the outer part here is called epithelial. So you find epithelial cells. We said this is where you find microvilli. Then we have blood vessels. So these are blood vessels. Then the inside part or the middle part of it is called the lacteal. Now, what is important here is to look at what is the function of a capillaries that you find on this and what is the function of the lacteal. Okay, what is the function of the lacteal? So these are the things that we focus on, and we are going to look at the functions. So what are the functions of the capillaries? So capillaries, the function is just absorption of glucose and amino acid and carry it away from the small intestine into the blood. So capillaries absorb glucose and amino acid. So that's the function, and carry it away from the small intestine into the blood. But what is important is absorption of glucose and amino acid occurs in the capillary. Then for a lacteal, that is simply absorption of fat, acid, and actually glycerol. So absorption of fat, acid, and glycerol. Okay? So in other words, absorption of lipids occurs in the lacteal. So fat, acid, and glycerol are absorbed in the lacteal. And of course, you should be able to remember this part. All right, so this wraps up the topic. So we've done with the topic. What remains is us to answer the questions. And of course, if you stayed up to this point, do not forget to subscribe. Do not forget to turn on the notification bell so that whenever I post new materials, you'll be notified. All right, we can now start answering the questions.